Sometimes it's easy to get in our bubbles, and that's especially true when we're talking about The Sims. I know that on my channel, there are some certain opinions that are not really replicated on Twitter, and because of that, we're getting out of our comfort zone and reacting to unpopular opinions for The Sims franchise. I wish I didn't have to say this, but please just don't be a jerk to anyone. You will disagree with some of these, I guarantee it, but that's really the fun of these videos. Again, everybody's entitled to their own opinion, and I definitely want to hear your reactions. Please just don't direct it to the actual individual. And of course, thank you to the individuals who did respond to this. The first one is about occults, and honestly, this is probably one of the tamest ones. Aliens are my favorite Sims occult. I love fairies, and outside of the Sims, I much prefer them. But specifically in the Sims games, aliens are my absolute favorite. I think it has to do with alien abductions and the potential for random babies. Now, honestly, this is kind of funny because to my understanding, there's actually a bug with that right now, in Sims 4 anyway, so let's hope that gets fixed. I don't have a strong opinion on this. Aliens definitely are not my favorite. I do like that they exist. Honestly, I think I have the most fun with aliens in Sims 2. I like how in Sims 2 there's a little bit lore around aliens, and that's really what made me most interested in them. I guess my unpopular opinion would be aliens have never really wowed me in any of the Sims games, but I would say if I had to pick a favorite occult, it would actually be werewolves in Sims 4. I just really like how they're done. No, they're not perfect, but I do think they have a lot of dimension to them, and I think the team really nailed that pack. Again, it's really weird for me to pick both Sims 4 and werewolves, but that is my personal opinion. If you do play with occults, let me know in the comments below which are your favorite. Again, this could be subject to change if they ever created a different occult or they improved any of the existing ones. Now brace yourself because this is probably the hottest take, and again, as a reminder, do not send hate to the individual. My opinion is things like sentiments, social compatibility, family and romance dynamics, romance satisfaction, etc. don't mean anything to me. And on top of that, they're saying they don't care about complexity in their game. Now, honestly, I know this is a hot take, especially on this channel. This is something I value the very most. I will admit some of these systems in Sims 4 just don't really come together for me, which I can talk about in a different video. I personally think Sims 2 and the third Sims game still have more complexity. However, I'm not saying I don't like any of those, I just think they need some work. And of course, I am largely not on this side. Of course, I want nuance and complexity, but this just goes to show you we all play for different reasons. However, something that does interest this person includes small pets, physical activities, and hobbies. And I will say, I like all of those too. I just like complexity as well. And taking this a step further, there are people that said Sims 4 was their favorite game in the franchise. I know on my channel that might not be a popular opinion, but this definitely is a sentiment that is shared on Twitter, at least somewhat. I personally think this is true of more players than we anticipate, and people just are hesitant to say so. Reasons for this include creative tools, Sims customization, different systems to make Sims and relationships feel more unique, milestones that they say are an evolution of Sims 2 memories. Of course, I actually do think Sims 4 does some things better than the past Sims games, as it should. Overall, build mode is better in Sims 4 in my opinion, and yes, there are some great customization options. I do generally like milestones, I like some of these attributes, but I will say, even though Sims 4 has all these different systems, as I said before, I personally feel that the individual Sims and their interactions aren't as surprising, nuanced, or complex as the past games. And that's really the primary reason Sims 4 is not my favorite. Again, I didn't say I hated Sims 4, it's just simply not my favorite. And that goes to show you what you value really makes an impact on what game you are most drawn to. My favorite Sims game is the third Sims game, and some people absolutely hate that game. And honestly, that's totally fine. I can understand why that game can be polarizing. This person echoed that point more or less. Honestly, I think it just comes down to the playstyle you look for. I wish The Sims 4 had more of an RPG and grinding focused gameplay like the third Sims game, but it does its best, which is storytelling. And now, let's talk about some less popular packs. One of them, of course, is High School Years. Personally, I think this pack is less popular in part because it was hyped up so much. However, there are some people that actually really like this pack. High School Years is my favorite pack. Now, I've made my opinion on kits known many times. I personally think they are too expensive, they don't excite me, but they are what they are. And I do understand people who don't use CC, actually that's me included, I just don't buy kits, do get use out of kits too. And of course, even if I want kits to improve or to be better somehow, I do have to remember there are people who primarily build in their game, and that definitely is not me. However, they did give some more details about why they like high school years. As they explained, it's my favorite pack for furniture and decor. Of course, they are a builder, so we have to keep that in mind. Copperdale is probably my second favorite world, and it has some of my favorite create a sim. I like all the gameplay and use it a lot, and even though high school is glitchy, I still have fun when I use it. And that just goes to show you people do buy packs for different reasons. And speaking of packs, there is someone who really loves Lovestruck. Lovestruck is my favorite pack. I love that sometimes romance is an actual challenge and it feels a lot more realistic. And it was somewhat silly. Now I do understand that. I do think there are silly elements to this, and yes, it does add some challenge to romance. I think it had a lot of potential and it just kind of fell flat. I might actually do a video on Lovestruck or past packs if you're interested, talking about what each pack does well and where it falls flat for me. I will say, the next opinion, I understand where their frustration is coming from, but I can't agree with it. New generation just doesn't know enough about this game to be talking about it like they do. Now when I asked, they didn't mean new generation as in the youngest generation, like Gen Alpha. Actually it's Gen Beta, but I assume they were talking about Gen Alpha. Instead, they were talking about people who just started playing The Sims, or they had been playing Sims 4 for a few years. Now again, I do understand this because people who have played past Sims games or have been playing for a long time are going to bring in a different perspective. They might have different standards on different things, and certainly my bias is starting with Sims 2. I think back to the past Sims games often, and that sometimes is why Sims 4 disappoints me. All players are valid, and just because you've been playing really long or a short time doesn't mean you can't have an opinion on something. I guess I just don't really agree with gatekeeping, and even if I really disagree with someone, it's still important we are able to voice our opinions. I am not a better player just because I played Sims 2. I am not superior to anyone, that is for sure. So that's just where I disagree on this one. Now, while the third Sims game is my favorite game in the franchise, it definitely has some pretty big flaws, and that means I'm not going to say that I love everything. One aspect of the third Sims game that I like in theory but less in practice is what this person mentions here, which of course is creative style. Now, creative style has great customization in theory, and you can spend hours doing whatever you want. My problem is it is pretty clunky. It does freeze up the game even with my optimized 64-bit version, and honestly, I too find it overwhelming. Personally, I would not be against getting this again potentially if it was done a little bit more smoothly, but frankly, what I just want the most is just a color wheel. A color wheel alone would satisfy what I want for customization. So in other words, I'm not against creative style, I just think the third Sims game didn't quite nail it, and I don't trust that Sims 4 can handle it, quite frankly. In the Sims 4 community, there is a push to continue to get more unique worlds, and honestly, I am so on board with that. I would pick South Africa from the 2020 survey. But regardless, this next opinion is interesting. I would really not be mad to get another world based on California if it comes with a real beach, not just a map, inaccessible, etc. Hear me out, I'm not totally against this. I would just say to this, but there are other worlds we can also get a beach. I personally would prefer the Brazilian beach town from the 2020 survey. That said, I am realistic and I know the team is going to make more American-based worlds, and if they did, I would not mind another beach. It just would have to feel really unique. I would say I would like them to add surfing then and lots of activities. Make the beach a really big highlight of the pack. The other plus, I guess, is the team would be very familiar with the area, so hopefully they would represent it well. Then again, San Sequoia, I feel like is not a great world, and it is around their area. So all in all, I'm not totally opposed to this, as many people might be, but I do hope we get more non-American worlds before we get something like this. Now, I will say this next one is probably something that is not going to to be popular on my channel either. Micromanaging, absolutely everything is so fun. I don't want them to be able to do anything, even if their needs run low. They also don't need to develop preferences like likes and dislikes, turn-ons and turn-offs. Clearly, we have a very different playstyle. You probably know if you've been watching my channel any time that I really do not like micromanagement. In fact, that was one of my biggest critiques of My Wedding Disasters, or at least one of them. When Sims have to be micromanaged, it feels like they're just not very intelligent, and then I don't get really engaged. Now, don't get me wrong, I understand this could be useful for certain gameplay, and also even things like making machinimas. However, I would argue this is where autonomy on or off comes in, and honestly, I just really feel like Sims 4 leans into micromanagement a bit too much for my taste, which again might explain why some people are more interested in certain packs over me. However, I suspect this next one is going to make people even angrier if you do like Sims 2. Sims 2 does not have very complex personalities. The lack of diversity makes the game highly repetitive. Now, honestly, I have mixed opinions on this. I don't outright disagree with all of it. While I actually do prefer the personalities in the third Sims game, I will say Sims 2 Sims are always really interesting, and you can definitely tell the difference based upon what their attributes are. My idea would be having Sims 2 and Sims 3 kind of mashed together, and what I would do is I would have general personality points for basic attributes like lazy or active, etc., and then individual traits for more unique personalities. So all in all, I think that Sims 2 is not repetitive, it's very entertaining, and it's a great game, but I wouldn't say it is my absolute favorite when it comes to personalities. Yes, they are distinct, but there is of course room for improvement too. And now let's talk about celebrity endorsements in the Sims franchise. I believe that people who complain about brand deal, packs, and celebrities have forgotten about the past games. Now honestly, this is true. The Sims franchise has always had different celebrity connections, and I don't always mind them. In fact, some of them are pretty good. For example, they do mention IKEA and H&M. Those two stuff packs for Sims 2 fit the game and were interesting in my opinion. Maybe it is nostalgia. That said, if they do tie-ins like this, they do have to fit the game. They have to bring their own unique value and they have to be useful. One glaring example of something I do not like is Journey to Batu, which is not an unpopular opinion whatsoever. It just didn't really fit in, and I don't think they really knew what they were doing with it. With that pack, it really felt like they wanted to get Star Wars in The Sims, but they didn't really commit either to integrating it into the game or really giving a great Star Wars experience. But that said, sometimes brand collaborations can even be interesting. They just have to be thoughtfully done. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.